So you're riding shotgun through downtown Pittsburgh on a Friday night. Your buddy is driving, not you. Maybe he rode through a stop sign, maybe the taillight's out. I don't know. Really doesn't matter. Blue and red lights fill the mirrors, and now you are both pulled over. Now, most people have no idea what their passenger rights are during a traffic stop in Pennsylvania, and that is exactly what gets them into trouble. Now, your friend hands over his license. The officer walks back to the cruiser. All simple and plain, right? Then a second officer appears at your window, taps the glass, looks right at you and says, "Can I see your ID?" Now, right there, what you say as a passenger during a traffic stop in Pennsylvania determines whether this stays a 5-minute inconvenience or turns into something much worse. Because here's what most people don't know. Passengers have different rights than drivers. And later in this video, I'm going to give you the exact words that keep those rights intact, including one line that shuts down the most common trick officers use to turn a routine traffic stop into a full vehicle search. Now, do passengers have to show ID in Pennsylvania? This is the number one question I get all the time. And the answer surprises most people. Now, in Pennsylvania, there is no statute requiring passengers to identify themselves during a traffic stop. The driver has to hand over a license, registration, and insurance. That's the law. But passengers, a different story. Pennsylvania's vehicle code obligates the operator of the vehicle, not the people sitting in the passenger seat. Now, officers, they will ask. They almost always ask. And the way they ask makes it sound mandatory. I'm going to need to see everyone's ID. Very matter of fact, very routine sounding. But routine sounding and legally required are two different things. So let's talk about Derek. Now, Derek was riding with his cousin through Wilkinsburg when they got pulled over for an expired inspection sticker. The officer asked Derek for his ID. Derek handed it over, and the officer ran his name. It turned out, however, that Derek had an old summary warrant from a missed hearing he had in Allegheny County. Derek, of course, got arrested on the spot during someone else's traffic stop. Not his, someone else's traffic stop. Now, if Derek had known his rights, if Derek had watched these videos, that stop ends with his cousin getting a fix-it ticket and both of them driving away. But here's what you should actually say. Here is your script. Memorize it, practice it, say it calmly and clearly. Practice it in the mirror, maybe even do some TikToks on it. Officer, I am not the driver. I don't believe I'm required to identify myself. Am I being detained or am I free to go? That's it. 3 sentences. Let me break down why each part works. I'm not the driver. Establishes that the vehicle code obligations don't apply to you. You're drawing the legal line. I don't believe I'm required to identify myself. It's a polite refusal, not a confrontation. You're not saying I refuse. You're stating a legal position. Am I being detained or am I free to go? It forces a decision. If the officer says that you're free to go, the conversation is over. If they say you're being detained, they need a certain level of legal justification specific to you, not to the driver. Can they search you? Here's where it gets critical. And I think this is where I see the most damage being done. An officer pulls the car over because the driver did something, not the passenger. That does not automatically give them the right to search passengers or their belongings. Now, officers are going to say officer safety, but that becomes the issue later on. Under Pennsylvania law and the Fourth Amendment, searching a passenger requires one of 3 things: your consent, probable cause specific to you, or a warrant. The most common way they get around these requirements is consent, and not the kind where they formally ask you permission. It sounds like this: you mind if I take a quick look into your bag? Or why don't you step out so we can get this sorted out? Those are easy questions. They sound like they're being polite, but both of these questions are designed to get you to cooperate your rights away. Literally just giving your rights away. Your response: officer, I don't consent to any searches. Say it once, say it clearly. Then stop explaining. Shut your mouth. No need to explain anything else. Once you say it, remain silent. See, I represent a woman one time. Let's call her Graceland, who was a passenger in the car stopped for speeding on 376 near Monroeville. The officer asked her to step out and just asked if he could check her purse just for safety. Graceland said sure, because she had nothing to hide. Inside the purse was her prescription medication and the bottle with someone else's name on it. She got charged with possession. Now, Graceland has said the 6 words, I don't consent to any searches. That purse never gets opened. Can they make you get out of the car? This one is different, and most people mix it up all the time. Yes, under U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Maryland versus Wilson, officers can order passengers out of the vehicle during a lawful traffic stop. That is settled law. Pennsylvania follows it. So if they tell you to step out, step out. Don't argue that point. You will lose, and it will escalate. I've had clients turn a routine traffic stop into resisting arrest charge simply because they refuse to exit when ordered. But stepping out doesn't mean you have to answer questions, and it absolutely does not mean you've consented to a search. Once you're outside of the car, here's your line. I'm complying with your request to exit the vehicle. I don't consent to any searches, and I'm choosing not to answer any questions. Very calm like, cooperative on the physical direction, but firm on your constitutional rights. That distinction matters in court. If your case ends up in front of a judge in Allegheny County or anywhere else in Pennsylvania, the question is going to be, did this person consent? And if you said these words, the answer is no. You were cooperative with the lawful order and firm on the unlawful request. That's exactly where you want to be. So let's talk about the I smell something trick. If you watch my video on what to say when cops ask where you're coming from, you know officers are trained to create probable cause during a stop. That's just what they do. One of the most common tools is they claim that they smell marijuana or alcohol. Here's the reality. That claim with other factors could, I say could, give them grounds to search your vehicle. And if you're in the vehicle, you're now caught up in it. You cannot stop an officer from claiming they smell something, but you can make sure that the record is clear. I don't consent to any searches, and I'd like that noted for the record. If it goes to court, your attorney can challenge the basis of the search, but only if you never agreed to it. The moment you say, go ahead, or I don't care, you've handed them everything. So what happens if they search you anyway? Don't physically resist, ever. If an officer conducts a search you believe is unlawful, you fight it in a courtroom, not on the side of the road. Stay calm. Stay clearly, I do not consent to this search. And then let your attorney handle it. Evidence obtained from an illegal search can be suppressed. That means thrown out. Charges dropped, case dismissed. I've seen it happen dozens of times in courtrooms all across Pennsylvania, from Pittsburgh to Washington County, Allegheny County, Butler, Westmoreland, all over. Small towns you never even heard of. But suppression only works if you clearly refuse consent. If there's any ambiguity, the evidence stays in. So here's a quick recap. Here's your passenger rights playbook for Pennsylvania. You don't have to show ID. You don't have to answer questions. You do have to exit if ordered. You never have to consent to a search, and you say it out loud, clearly every single time, because silence is ambiguous. A clear verbal refusal is not. Now, this video covered what to do when you're in someone else's car. But what happens when police want to get into something a little bit more personal, like your phone? That's a completely different set of rules, and most people get it wrong. I cover that in the next video. If you're dealing with a situation like this right now and need to talk to someone, our contact information is in the description below.